The grand conclave chamber hung in the endless dark between stars, a perfect black sphere wrapped in veins of glowing blue light. Inside, silence ruled until it didn't. 1,342 alien species filled the chamber. Some sat on floating thrones of crystal. Others hovered in clouds of gas held together by force fields. A few didn't have bodies at all, just pulses of thought projected into shared space. They were the Galactic Concord, the oldest and most powerful governing body in the known universe. And today, they had gathered for one reason: to judge humanity. At the center of it all, standing alone on a small platform, was President Elias Rourke. He wore a simple gray suit, slightly wrinkled from days without sleep. His eyes were tired but steady. Around him the air hummed with judgment. High Arbiter Vexil loomed above the rest, a towering avian being from the Krith Dominion, with feathers like polished obsidian and 6 eyes that never blinked. His voice boomed through the chamber, amplified by a dozen hidden speakers. Species Sol 3, designation human. You stand accused of violating the sovereignty accords. Your fleet crossed neutral borders without clearance. Your weapons shattered the Pax Nebula peace zone. You ignored 3 direct orders to stand down. You have no treaty status. You have no right to speak here. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some species hissed. Others pulsed with cold light. All agreed. Humanity was a child playing with fire. Vexil leaned forward, his beak clicking. The Concord has decided. Earth and all its colonies will be placed under permanent quarantine. No ships in. No ships out. You will be cut off from the galaxy. Forever. The sentence hung in the air like a death knell, but Rourke didn't flinch. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small silver device. He pressed a button. His translator shut off with a soft click. Now no one in the chamber could understand him, unless they knew English. He looked up at Vexil, then at the thousands of alien eyes watching him. And in a calm, clear voice he said, "Enough talking." The moment the words left his lips, the lights in the chamber flickered. Not just the lights, everything. The glowing veins on the walls dimmed. The floating thrones wobbled. The force fields around gaseous beings sputtered. Outside the chamber, across the entire Concord station, every ship in orbit, warships, freighters, scout vessels, suddenly went dark. Engines died. Shields collapsed. Weapons powered down. Silence. Then chaos. Alarms blared in a dozen alien tongues. Technicians scrambled. Vexil's feathers bristled in panic. "What is this?" he screeched, his voice raw without amplification. Rourke didn't answer. He just stood there, hands at his sides, watching the most powerful beings in the galaxy realize they were helpless. Because while the Conquered had spent centuries building empires on rules, rituals, and rigid hierarchies, humanity had been doing something else. They had been listening. For decades, Earth scientists had studied alien technology, not to copy it, but to understand its patterns. They noticed something strange. Every piece of non-human tech, from the smallest comms unit to the largest dreadnought, shared a hidden frequency. A quiet hum beneath the surface. A universal resonance. It wasn't a flaw. It was a design choice. The entire galaxy ran on the same invisible rhythm, like a song everyone had forgotten they were singing. Humans didn't just hear it. They learned to conduct it. While the Concord debated ethics and protocol, Earth built silent devices, resonance dampeners, that could disrupt that frequency. Not destroy. Just pause, like holding a finger over a tuning fork. And now, every human ship within 3 light minutes had activated them at once. The Concord's entire defense grid, its pride, its shield, its symbol of control, was offline. Not broken, just waiting. Rourke finally spoke again, his voice carrying without tech. "We didn't come here to fight. We came to talk, but you wouldn't listen. You called us primitives. You laughed at our art, mocked our history, dismissed our pain. You thought we were just another species to manage." He stepped forward, and the platform rose slightly, bringing him eye to eye with Vexil. "We're not asking for mercy. We're offering a choice." He raised one hand. On his wrist, a small screen lit up, showing live feeds from Earth, Mars, Titan, and a dozen colony worlds. Billions of humans going about their lives. Children in schools. Doctors in hospitals. Farmers in fields under alien suns. "You can recognize Earth as a sovereign equal," Rourke said. Or you can learn why we've never needed your permission to survive. Vexel stared at the screen, at the faces, at the sheer stubborn normalcy of it all. This wasn't a warlike species. This was a people who built, healed, dreamed, even while under threat, and they had just shut down the most advanced military network in the galaxy, without firing a single shot. The High Arbiter's wings drooped. His voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. How did you do this? Rourke smiled, not with pride but with sorrow. You assumed intelligence looked like yours. Order, logic, hierarchy. But human intelligence? It's messy. It's emotional. It finds patterns in chaos. You gave us your tech as scraps. We turned it into a key. Outside, the first human ships began to power back up, not to attack but to restore. One by one, conquered systems flickered back to life. The dampeners were off. The choice was made, but the message was clear. We can do it again. Anytime. The chamber remained silent. No one moved. No one spoke. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Conquered felt something it had long forgotten. Fear. Not of weapons, not of war, but of being outthought. As Rourke turned to leave, a single thought echoed through the minds of every alien present. Humanity wasn't the galaxy's weakest link. It was its sharpest mind, and it had just said, enough. In the days after the conclave, the galaxy did not fall, but it trembled. News of Earth's silent strike spread faster than light. Some species called it a miracle, others a warning. Within the Conquered's inner circles, old alliances cracked. The Krith Dominion demanded war. The Lumina Collective urged caution. A dozen minor factions quietly opened secret channels to Earth asking one question: what else can you do? But on Earth, President Rourke felt no triumph. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, he watched live feeds from deep space sensors. Something was wrong. The resonance dampeners, the very tools that had saved them, were failing. Not all at once, but in waves, like something was pushing back. Commander Lian Zhao, lead engineer of Project Stillpoint, stood beside him, her face pale under the dim lights. It's not a glitch, she said, voice tight. The harmonic field. It's being disrupted by an external source, something older, stronger. Rourke didn't ask how she knew. He trusted her. She had been the one to first hear the galaxy's hidden song. Now she heard something else beneath it, a deeper hum like a heartbeat from the void. Where is it coming from? He asked. Lian pointed to a star map. A red pulse blinked near the shattered ring, a graveyard of dead worlds and broken megastructures long avoided by all spacefaring species. There. That's where our first probes detected the anomaly. Before they went silent, Rourke made his decision fast. Send the Odyssey. The Odyssey was Earth's most advanced stealth vessel. No weapons, no emissions, just silence and speed. Aboard were two people, Dr. Mara Kelso, a linguist who could decode alien syntax in hours, and Jax Torren, a former Marine with nerves of steel and a pilot's gift for flying blind. Their mission: find the source. Learn what was interfering with humanity's only defense, and if possible, survive. The journey took 6 days through dead zones where even starlight seemed thin. When they reached the shattered ring, the sensors went wild. Not with energy, but with patterns. Strange, repeating signals that felt almost familiar. There, Jack said, pointing to a dark shape on the view screen. It wasn't a ship. It was a structure, half machine, half organic, wrapped in vines of metal and bone. It floated like a forgotten god. Mara leaned forward. That's not Conquered design. Not Krith, not anything in our database. They docked in silence. No alarms, no defenses. Just an open airlock, as if waiting. Inside, gravity was weak. The walls pulsed faintly, like breathing. Strange symbols glowed on the floor. Symbols Mara recognized from ancient Earth cave paintings, from Sumerian tablets, from Aboriginal songlines. This place, it knows us, she whispered. Deeper in, they found a chamber lined with pods. Hundreds of them. Each one held a figure, tall, slender, with smooth skin and closed eyes. Humanoid, too humanoid. Jax raised his sidearm. Trap? Mara shook her head. She touched a pod. It was warm. They're alive. In stasis. Then, without warning, one pod hissed open. The being inside sat up slowly. Its eyes opened, deep brown, like earth soil after rain. It looked at Mara, then at Jax, and spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "You are late." Mara froze. "How do you know our language?" The being stepped out, barefoot on the metal floor. "Because we taught it to you. Long ago, it called itself Echo. It said it was one of the progenitors, the first builders, the seeders of life across the stars. They had shaped countless species, including humans. But humans were different. They grew too fast, too wild. They asked too many questions. The Conquered was never meant to unite the galaxy," Echo said, voice soft but heavy. "It was built to control it, to stop species like yours from waking up." Mara's mind raced. "You're saying the Galactic Conquered is a prison?" "A cage with velvet walls," Echo replied. "And you just rattled the bars." Back on Earth, the situation worsened. The resonance field flickered again. This time, entire cities lost power for minutes at a time. Panic spread. Conspiracy theories bloomed. Some blamed aliens. Others blamed their own leaders. But the real threat came not from within, but from above. The Concord, desperate to regain control, launched a new kind of attack. Not with lasers or missiles, but with thoughts. They broadcast a mimetic signal, a psychic wave designed to amplify fear, doubt, and division. It slipped past firewalls, bypassed screens, and whispered directly into human minds. "Your leaders lied. You are alone. They will betray you." Within hours, riots broke out in New Delhi, São Paulo. Lagos, soldiers questioned orders. Neighbors turned on each other. The world began to tear itself apart. Not from outside force, but from within. President Rourke stood in the command center, watching the chaos unfold. He knew brute force wouldn't stop this. You couldn't shoot an idea. Then Leanne ran in, eyes wide. "Sir, we can fight it. Not with tech. With story," she explained. Human minds had always resisted chaos through narrative. Myths, songs, shared truths. While other species relied on logic or instinct, humans used stories to hold themselves together in the dark. Rourke gave the order. Across Earth, every screen, every speaker, every public channel switched to one broadcast. Not a speech. Not a warning, a lullaby, then a folk song from Ireland, a poem from Japan, a children's tale from Kenya, a jazz riff from New Orleans. Clip after clip of human culture, raw, imperfect, beautiful. The mimetic signal faltered. The whispers lost power, because the human mind, when reminded of its own meaning, could not be broken by fear alone. In orbit, the Odyssey received the news. Mara watched the feeds with tears in her eyes. Echo stood beside her. "You see now? You were never weak. You were just different." Mara turned. "Why did you abandon us?" "We didn't," Echo said. "We hid. The ones who rule the Conquered, they fear what you became. They call you flawed, but your flaws are your strength. You fall, you bleed, you doubt, and still you rise." Then Echo grew serious. "But they are coming. The true masters. They sleep beneath the core worlds, and they will not let you wake the galaxy." As if on cue, alarms blared on the Odyssey. Sensors detected a massive energy surge near the galactic core, something ancient stirring. Jax grabbed the controls. "Time to go." Mara took one last look at the pods. "Will you come with us?" Echo shook its head. "My time is past. Yours is just beginning." The Odyssey launched into the void, carrying a truth heavier than any weapon. Humanity was not an accident. It was an answer, and the galaxy was not ready for the question. The truth from the shattered ring spread like fire through Earth's highest councils. Humanity was not alone in its origins, but it was alone in its defiance. The progenitors had seeded life across the stars, yet only humans had broken free of the quiet control built into their biology, their tech, their very thoughts. And that freedom had made them a threat. President Rourke gathered his closest advisors in the underground war room beneath Geneva. The air was thick with tension. On the main screen, data streamed from deep space probes. Massive energy signatures were rising from the core worlds, regions so ancient, even the Conquered rarely ventured there. "They're waking up," Commander Lian Zhao said, her voice low. The Synth-Arcs, the name sent a chill through the room. According to Echo's warning, the Synth-Arcs were not flesh, not machine, but something in between. Godlike intelligences that had ruled the progenitors long ago. When the progenitors rebelled, the Synth-Arcs vanished, hiding in hibernation beneath dead stars. Now, Humanity's act of defiance had stirred them from their slumber. They see us as a virus, Dr. Mara Kelso said, fresh from debriefing after the Odyssey's return. A flaw in the design, and they intend to correct it. Rourke didn't speak for a long moment. Then he asked, "How long do we have?" "Days," Jax Torin replied, standing near the door, arms crossed. "Maybe less. Their signal is spreading faster than anything we've seen. It's not just energy, it's rewriting local space." As if to prove his point, alarms blared. A priority alert flashed. The moon's orbital defense grid had gone offline. Not from sabotage, from something deeper. The very fabric of physics around Luna was shifting. Then the broadcast came. It wasn't sound. It wasn't light. It was a thought pressed directly into every conscious mind on Earth. Cold, absolute, final. You are error. You will be erased. Panic erupted worldwide. People collapsed in the streets, clutching their heads. Animals went silent. Birds fell from the sky. The Syntharks weren't just attacking. They were unmaking reality around Earth piece by piece. But Rourke didn't freeze. He turned to Leon. "Is Protocol Mnemosyne ready?" She nodded. "It's risky. It's never been tested at this scale. Do it." Protocol Mnemosyne wasn't a weapon. It was a shield made of memory. For years, Earth scientists had studied how stories, songs, and shared experiences could anchor the human mind against chaos. They built a global neural network, quiet, invisible, that linked every human through the oldest tool we have, meaning. Across the planet, every screen, every radio, every public speaker switched on, not to show images, but to share voices. A grandmother in Oslo telling her granddaughter a bedtime tale. A street musician in Buenos Aires playing an old guitar tune, a teacher in Nairobi reciting a poem about rain, a soldier in Jakarta whispering a prayer to his fallen friend. One voice. Then 1,000. Then billions. The Synthark's thought wave hit Earth and shattered. Not because it was weak, but because human minds refused to accept a world without story. The Syntharks spoke in absolutes. Humans lived in questions, and in that space between they found strength. The pressure lifted. Birds rose again. People stood. The moon's orbit stabilized. For the first time, the Syntharks hesitated, but only one of them. From the core, a single signal pulsed, clear, sharp, and furious. It carried no words, only intent. "You will kneel." Rourke knew this wasn't over. The Syntharks wouldn't send an army. They would send a lesson, and they chose the moon. Within hours, a massive object emerged from folded space near Earth's orbit. It wasn't a ship. It was a shard of black metal, shaped like a falling star 10 kilometers long. It drifted toward the moon without sound, without warning. Its purpose was clear: shatter Luna. Not to destroy Earth, but to show what happened to those who defied order. Global panic returned. Evacuation plans failed. Governments froze, but Rourke called a single order. All stations stand down. No weapons. No resistance. His advisors stared at him. "Sir, they're going to destroy our moon. And if we fight, they'll destroy our world," he replied. "We don't win with force. We win with truth." He turned to Mara. "What did Echo say about the Syntharks?" She remembered. "They don't understand chaos. They see it as noise. But if you give chaos meaning, it becomes music," Rourke nodded. "Then let's give them a song they'll never forget." He authorized Project Icarus, not a bomb, not a beam, but a broadcast. Every human on Earth, linked through Mnemosyne, would focus on one thought, one feeling, one shared moment of pure, defiant hope. At the appointed hour, as the black shard hovered over the moon, ready to strike, Earth went silent, not in fear. In unity, billions closed their eyes. They thought of first steps, first loves, last goodbyes, sunrise over mountains, laughter in the rain, the smell of bread, the weight of a child in their arms, and they sent it all, not as data, but as feeling, into the void. The black shard trembled. Its surface rippled like water. Lights flickered inside it, colors no human had ever seen. Then, from deep within the machine, something new emerged. Doubt, curiosity. A single pulse returned, not of destruction, but of question. Why? Rourke stood on the surface of the moon, suited in a simple EVA suit facing the shard alone. No weapons, no shield, just a man before a god. He spoke into the void, knowing the Synth-Arc would hear. Because we choose to. The shard did not fire. It hovered, watching, learning. But one signal remained cold, one Synth-Arc deeper in the core, untouched by the wave. It sent a final message, clear and sharp. Surrender your will or be unmade. Rourke looked up at the stars. He knew the real battle had just begun, and this time humanity wouldn't just survive. It would show the galaxy what it meant to be truly alive. The lone Synth-Arc's warning echoed across every human mind like a blade drawn slowly across glass. Surrender your will or be unmade. It was not a threat of war. It was a promise of erasure, of memory, of meaning, of self. Earth held its breath. President Rourke returned from the moon not as a hero, but as a man carrying the weight of a species. He knew the other Synth-Arcs had paused, confused by humanity's strange resistance. But this one, the oldest, the coldest, had not blinked. It saw humans not as children to be taught, but as errors to be deleted. In Geneva, emergency sessions ran day and night. Scientists, poets, soldiers, and farmers all gave input. What do you do when your enemy doesn't want your land, your resources, or your obedience, but your very soul? Commander Lienzo had an idea. We can't fight it with force. But maybe we can speak to it. How? Asked Dr. Mara Kelso. It doesn't understand stories. It sees them as noise. Then we give it more than noise, Leon said. We give it truth. They called it the archive of being. Not just data, but the raw, unfiltered experience of being human. Every photo ever taken, every song ever sung, every diary entry, every tear, every laugh, even the ugly parts, the wars, the lies, the pain. Because to hide the darkness would be to lie, and the Synth-Arc would know. Jax Torin, now acting as Earth's orbital liaison, oversaw the upload. From every corner of the planet, petabytes of human life streamed into a single signal, aimed not at the Synth-Arc's location, but into the silence between its thoughts. Then they waited. Days passed. The black shard still hovered near the moon, unmoving. The other Synth-Arcs remained quiet. The galaxy watched, holding its collective breath. Then, without warning, the lone Synth-Arc answered. Not with words, with action. A new object tore through space. A planet-sized warform forged from the corpse of a dead star. Its surface shifted like liquid metal, forming eyes, mouths, weapons that defied physics. It moved toward Earth not with speed, but with inevitability, as if gravity itself bent to its will. Panic surged. Evacuation ships launched. Families hugged in the streets. But Rourke stood firm. No, he said. We don't run. We show. He ordered every human on Earth to do one thing. Live, not hide. Not fight, just live. Schools stayed open. Markets bustled. Artists painted. Musicians played in the squares. Farmers tended their fields under alien skies. And all of it, the noise, the mess, the beauty, was broadcast into space. Raw and unedited, the warform slowed. It watched a child chase a dog through a sunlit park. It listened to an old man hum a tune while fixing a broken chair. It saw a nurse hold the hand of a dying patient and whisper, "You're not alone." For the first time in 10 million years, the Synth-Arc hesitated, because it had never seen a species that chose kindness in the face of death. Rourke knew this was the moment. He suited up again and took a small shuttle, not armed, not shielded, straight toward the warform. Jax tried to stop him. "Sir, it'll crush you like dust." "Maybe," Rourke said. "But if I don't go, we've already lost." He landed on the warform's surface. It didn't attack. It watched. Standing on the shifting metal, Rourke opened a channel, not to command, but to share. He didn't speak of power or pride. He spoke of failure. "We've made so many mistakes," he said, voice calm. "We've hurt each other. We've destroyed forests, poisoned oceans, killed in the name of gods and flags. But we always come back. Not because we're strong, but because we care." He played a recording. A mother singing to her baby, then another. A scientist weeping when her cure worked. Then another. Enemies shaking hands after a long war. "You call us flawed," Rourke said. "But our flaws are why we grow. You built a perfect world of order. We built a messy world of hope, and hope is stronger than fear." Deep within the warform, something changed. Lights pulsed, not red but soft gold. The shifting metal stilled. A single beam of light reached down, not to destroy but to touch Rourke's hand. And in that moment, the Syntharch understood. Not logic. Not data feeling. It had spent eons believing emotion was weakness. But now it saw emotion was the bridge between beings. It was how humans turned strangers into family, pain into art, death into meaning. The war form began to shrink, not vanish but transform. It folded in on itself, becoming smaller, gentler, until it was no larger than a house. Then it powered down, silent and still, back on Earth. People cried, not from fear but from awe. But Rourke knew it wasn't over, because as the war form slept, a new signal came, not from the Syntharch but from the core worlds. A message simple and clear: we see you. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't friendly, it was curious. The other Syntharchs were waking, not to destroy but to learn. Rourke returned to Earth not as a savior, but as a teacher. Humanity had not won a war. It had started a conversation, and in the quiet that followed, the galaxy began to change. Alien ships that once patrolled with weapons now drifted near Earth, not to spy, but to listen. Children on distant worlds asked their parents, "What is a lullaby?" Artists tried to paint like humans. Philosophers debated, what if chaos is not the enemy of order but its partner? But Rourke stood on a hill outside Geneva watching the stars, knowing the real test was coming, because the Syntharchs were not the only ones watching. Somewhere in the dark, older things stirred, and they did not like what humanity had awakened. The galaxy held its breath. After the warform fell silent, after the Syntharchs stopped their advance, after the last echo of Earth's broadcast faded into the stars, nothing happened. No attack, no celebration, just quiet, a silence so deep it felt like waiting. President Elias Rourke knew better than to believe it was over. He stood alone in the empty Grand Conclave chamber, the same place where he had once said, "Enough talking." Now the chamber was abandoned. The alien throne sat empty. The glowing veins in the walls dimmed to a soft pulse like a sleeping heart. He wasn't here to gloat. He was here to offer. From his pocket he pulled a small wooden box. Inside lay a single acorn, brown, wrinkled, utterly ordinary. He placed it gently on the central dais where judgments had once been passed. Then he spoke, not to any audience but to the silence itself. "We don't want to rule you," he said. "We just want a seat at the table, and maybe a chance to teach you how to dream." As if in answer, the acorn trembled. A tiny root pushed through its shell, then another. It grew, not fast but sure, cracking the polished alien metal beneath it, reaching down into the unknown. Back on Earth, life returned to something like normal. But it was a new kind of normal. Alien ships now docked at orbital stations not as conquerors but as students. Young Krith scholars sat in Earth classrooms learning poetry. Lumina artisans traded light sculptures for human music. Even former enemies sent quiet messages. Tell us more. The Galactic Concord did not return. In its place rose the Free Conquered, a loose alliance built not on laws but on trust. And at its heart stood Earth, not as a leader, but as a friend. But Rourke knew peace was fragile. One evening, he met with Commander Lian Zhao, Dr. Mara Kelso, and Jax Torin in a quiet garden outside Geneva. The air smelled of rain and soil. "They're still out there," Jax said, eyes on the stars. "The ones who didn't wake up. The ones who hate what we are," Mara nodded. Echo warned us. "Not all progenitor creations welcomed change." Lian added, "Our resonance field is stable now, but it's not enough. We can't just defend. We have to connect." Rourke looked at his team, scientist, linguist, soldier, bound not by rank but by choice. "Then we keep sharing," he said. "Not just our strength but our doubts, our fears, our failures. That's what makes us real." And so they did. Earth opened its archives fully, not just art and science but history, every war, every mistake, every apology. Other species were shocked. "Why show your shame?" asked a young Krith envoy. "Because hiding it would be the real shame," Mara replied. Slowly others began to do the same. The Lumina admitted they once erased entire cultures to preserve harmony. The Vorex confessed they built their empire on slave labor. Shame turned to healing. Healing turned to trust. Meanwhile, the Syntharchs remained silent but not idle. From the core worlds, they sent small probes, not armed, but curious. They watched human children play. They listened to old men argue politics in cafes. They studied how humans mourned, loved, hoped. One day, a synth-arc probe landed gently in the garden where Rourke sat. It unfolded like a flower, revealing a smooth, reflective surface. On it appeared words, not in any alien script, but in simple English. "Teach us to dream." Rourke smiled. He placed his hand on the surface. "Dreaming starts with a question," he said. "Not what is true, but what if?" The probe pulsed with soft light. Then it rose and vanished into the sky. Weeks later, the first synth-arc-built structure appeared in orbit. Not a weapon, but a school. Open to all species. Its first lesson, how to imagine. The galaxy was changing. Not because humanity forced it, but because humanity showed it another way. But the true test came not from outside, but from within. A group of human colonies far from Earth began to whisper, "Why share our secrets? We won. We should lead." Some even built hidden weapons, fearing betrayal. When Rourke learned of it, he didn't send soldiers. He sent storytellers. He traveled to the colonies himself, not as president, but as a man. He sat with miners on Mars, farmers on Titan, engineers in the Belt. He listened. He shared his own doubts. And slowly the fear faded, because humanity's greatest power was never its tech or its tactics. It was its choice. To be kind, even when afraid. In the final days of that year, the Free Concord held its first true gathering, not in a chamber of judgment, but in an open field on Earth. Aliens and humans sat together under the same sky. There were no thrones, no speeches of power, just food, music, and conversation. Rourke walked among them unnoticed. He saw a Krith child laughing with a human girl. He heard a Vorax elder singing a folk song in broken English. He watched a synth-arc probe hover near a campfire, recording the crackle of flames, not as data, but as beauty. That night, he returned to the conclave chamber one last time. The acorn had grown into a sapling, its leaves catching the starlight. He placed a hand on its bark. "We made it," he whispered. "Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the smartest, but because we refused to stop believing in each other." And as the first breeze of a new age swept through the chamber, carrying the scent of Earth and green things, the galaxy finally understood. Human supremacy was never about ruling. It was about rising, together,